Oh, that's right. We're about to do some science. Alright, so last week we did a lot of talking about the science of procrastination. While I hope you learned something, I figured we'd spice things up this week with a lot of fancy experiments. So this week I decided to take us back to our grade school science fair days and play with a little bit of baking soda and vinegar. Woohoo! Now I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that most of us have made or at least seen a baking soda volcano before. Just a little baking soda, food coloring, and vinegar gives you something like this. Lava! No matter how old I get, that's still fun to watch. But do you know the science behind why it bubbles up like that? Let's find out. So this is the equation for what actually happens. But unless you're a chemist, we don't need to know all this jazz. Instead, how about we just break it down to the basics? This reaction takes place between two ingredients, vinegar and baking soda. So we mix our base, baking soda, or as scientists call it, sodium bicarbonate, with our liquid acid, vinegar, which is really just acetic acid that's been diluted down in water. Normal household vinegar is about 5% acetic acid. So what's happening when these two ingredients mix? Our vinegar mixes with our baking soda, and they mix their molecules up to make us three new chemicals. The first chemical is called sodium acetate, which is a salt that's commonly used for flavoring, you guessed it, our salt and vinegar chips. The second chemical it makes is this harmless substance that we drink every day, known as dihydrogen monoxide, or good old water. The third chemical, and the reason for all of our bubbly fun, is actually a gas that we produce every day, known as good old carbon dioxide. Ping! That's right. When baking soda and vinegar mix, they react together to form carbon dioxide, a gas that gets trapped inside the liquid and becomes the bubbles that we see. It's kind of like when you're sitting at the bottom of a pool and you let out a breath of air. The carbon dioxide from your lungs gets trapped in the liquid and raises up as a bubble. As millions of these bubbles form, they expand and create enough pressure that it forces them up and out of our bottle into the lava that we see. That's crazy, Kennen. How do you expect me to believe that a solid and a liquid make a gas? Hey, you're right to question me. Even though I'm wearing a bow tie, you shouldn't blindly trust what others tell you. Instead, how about I prove it with a little bit of scientific evidence? For starters, how about we show that baking soda and vinegar do make a gas by inflating a balloon with just those two ingredients. Don't believe me? Feel free to try this one at home. All you need is baking soda, vinegar, an empty bottle, and a balloon. First, fill your water bottle about a quarter of the way full with some vinegar. Then, probably with the help of a funnel, add about a tablespoon of baking soda into your balloon. Finally, wrap the lip of the balloon around the mouth of the water bottle. Then dump it and see what happens. And 3, 2, 1. Whoa! Instant inflation! Crazy, right? Alright, Kennen. So maybe baking soda and vinegar do make a gas. But how do we know that it's carbon dioxide and not, say, I don't know, oxygen? Woo! We're impressed. You guys are asking some good questions. But I think I might have an experiment that can answer this one, too. But for this, I'm going to need you to think back on what you already know about fire. So fire is a combustion reaction. It uses oxygen as fuel. That's why it can spread and grow bigger on a warm, windy day, instead of simply being blown out. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, is a much heavier gas. The carbon atoms hold on tightly to the oxygen so that the flames can't use it. And without oxygen, the flames go out. Okay, so if we know that oxygen is flammable, and carbon dioxide puts our fires out, let's see what happens when we mix our baking soda and vinegar. For this experiment, we're going to need candles, baking soda, vinegar, and a pitcher. Start by pouring a bunch of baking soda into the pitcher. Then add just enough vinegar that it starts to bubble up. But don't let it overflow. Let the carbon dioxide be formed, and let's pour our gas out and see what happens. Whoa! Look at that! No liquid, but the fire's gone out. Now, while this doesn't necessarily prove that it's carbon dioxide, it does show us that we've made an inflammable gas. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now that we've shown that the cool part of mixing baking soda and vinegar is creating carbon dioxide, let's add a little bit of physics and go outside for one last awesome experiment. I like to call this next experiment CO2 Rockets. Alright, if you want to try this at home, you better get a pen and pencil now, because we're going to need quite a few things for this experiment. Ready? Start with some plastic bottles and some plastic silverware to make our stand. Some trusty duct tape, can't go wrong with that. A cork, ask for parental assistance if you're not old enough to procure one for yourself. Some type of tissue paper, paper towels, toilet paper, napkins, it all works. And of course, our trusty old baking soda and vinegar. So for starters, tape your plastic silverware to your bottle to make a stand, like so. Next, you want to pour it about 1/5 of the way full with your vinegar. About that much. That's 1/5. Then add about 1 tablespoon of baking soda into your napkin. Then roll it up like a Tootsie Roll and tape one end of it. This is what we'll call our baking soda bullet. Now don't forget your scientific goggles of safety for all in-field work. Alright, now we have to do this last step pretty quickly. We're going to drop our baking soda bullet into our bottle, cork it nice and tight, then shake it a little bit, flip it over, and watch it fly. Shall we go? Alright, our bullet's in there. Let's shake it, flip it, and see what happens. We got it! And that, my friends, is how we make science fun. Till next week, stay classy, Snapchat. Alright guys, well, thanks for watching, and as always, feel free to send me your comments. The more feedback you give, the better this show will get. And if you happen to miss last week's episode on procrastination, it was pretty good. I posted it to my Facebook page, so feel free to check it out and leave me some comments. And tune in next week when we talk about the science behind GMOs.